Hi, I'm Susan Feller, curator for the exhibit Stories Are Made Loop by Loop. And today's interview is with Laura Salamy from New Mexico. I'm introducing these people always with the question, why did I select them? And in Laura's case, it's because she's an environmentalist and is using waste material purposefully in all of the hooking. She's pulling loops, she's making loops with punch needle, but she's hearkening back to our heritage where people used waste material. And I'd love to see some images and hear more about your process, Laura, if you'd like to share your screen.
All righty. There we go. You mentioned having a range of items. So this is an earlier piece. It was actually based on my daughter Elizabeth's painting that she did in school. I don't know, she might have been like sixth grade or something. Um, in it, at this point, I was already mixing materials. So there's wool yarn, there's wool fabric, there's t-shirt, the orange is t-shirt, the pink, there's pink t-shirt too. And then that orange ribbon with the you can see some of the threads because it got a little thready when I cut it. And at this point, I was also cutting everything by hand. I still pretty much cut everything by hand, but I definitely had to do it for this. Didn't even see a cutter for another 15 years. I mean, I moved here in 15. People had cutters in 15 here. So 2000, oops, there we go. In 17, I was still working with a lot of different materials. In this particular piece, I wanted to see how many things that I could work with. So if you look at the tan in the background, that's ultra suede.
Mm.
The head of the snake is t-shirt and some ribbons, that silky kind of ribbon you can buy at the Michaels. Um, the light purple is a velourish nightgown of my own. There's silk sari yarn, there's wool yarn, there's a lot of different things in there. I just wanted to see how much I could put in, and it was only a small piece, maybe a foot high. Um, the funny thing is, if you can tell the boundary, the multicolored um farthest out, it's from a silk scarf I found at the thrift store, and I was vending one day, and this was in my little store, my booth, and a woman came in with that exact same scarf on.
Oh,
I'd say, "Oh, lady, you gotta come over here and look." I'm not sure she appreciated it. I'm really not. Uh, and then I wanted to see. I want to do something large. I'd done floor rugs certainly, but this one is larger. It's 53 by 49, I think, the big Boucherite. And I had already done a Boucherite type of rug, much smaller. And a Boucherite is just in Morocco, you have rug makers, weavers who use old clothes because in the 60s, that's what they could get a hold of the easiest, especially the poorer people. So that's what Boucherate means, old ripped clothes. Um, and they make rugs out of them. They're not the good, nice, full wool rugs that you'll see, heritage type rugs from Morocco, the Bedouins. But they're the rugs that they use when they're eating, when they're cooking, what their kids play on. Anyway, I wanted to see what it would look like with a lot of bed sheets. Um, so on the left hand side, you can see how I organize things. I have to cut by hand because those are woven bed sheets as well as knit bed sheets, which is like using a big t-shirt. And I arrange into clear plastic bags, which kind of defies the whole environmental aspect of it, certainly. But I don't see any way around it. And I do reuse them. And then I just pull from them as I need. I have a lot of these plastic bags now all around my house, and I use them when I teach too. I can grab them and bring them. Lots of colors. By 2020, I wanted to do a journal, kind of like you had done back in whatever year that was. Uh, so I had had that burlap ribbon sitting in my house for years, and one day I could see it from my shower, frankly, and I wanted to finally use it somehow. And I said, "How can I use it?" And it was right before the end of the year, and I thought, "Oh, well, I'll just hook a little each day. It won't take me long either." Um, it did take me longer than I thought because that ribbon, there's wire along the edges of it, and the burlap easily rips out of the wiring. So I had to start being very, very careful. Um, Then, in order to keep myself honest, I would write up whatever that day's entry was about. It had something that happened during the day or that I saw during the day. And then I would write it up and then I would take a picture of it and put it up on Instagram too. So, in the end, what I thought might take me only 10, 15 minutes took at least an hour every night. Um, but because the pandemic then showed up in 2020, I had plenty of time. And it let me experiment with things. I found if you look on the left hand side, the arrows there, couldn't tell you right now what they mean. It was clearly around Hanukkah, though it was December because you have a menorah right next to it, and I do remember doing the menorah. Um, those are embroidered. They're stitched on. I found in the end that it was a lot easier to stitch certain things, which got me more into stitching. Frankly, you can see that 93 down there in the corner is stitched. Then I'd mix it. The fly, uh, the fly is October 11th, which is the day that Mike Pence was in the vice presidential debate, and that was the fly. That's how the fly came to be. And you can see I was playing with different materials. So there's some velour in there. I embroidered his outline, and then I used plastic bags to do his wings. Some ribbon, silk sari yarn is in there, a little bit of velour. So that's the fly, and I have a whole year of these. I had to go back and figure out what that fly was. And currently now, because I got so into stitching during the pandemic, I've been working on ways to combine stitching and hooking. Um, so in this, you'll see the hooking was done, the outline for the buds were done in wool yarns, and then I used t-shirt and silk sari yarn and some old wools that I found around to put in the hooking, and then I found two different DMC yarns, flosses to put it to stitch into those interstitial areas. And I'm doing more and more of that, and it's getting me interested to do that. And lastly, that's my contact info. And then you have the Sheila Nagig, who was one. I learned about Sheila Nagig one day on the internet. On Instagram one day. I saw it's from a rock formation, an old Celtic rock formation from Middle Ages. And said, I need to do that, and I need to do that now. And I did. So that's that.
Well, this was a good overview, definitely. Want to stop sharing, and we'll make sure that
Yeah.
that contact info is at the very end of this interview also for everybody. You referenced my doing a year-long study and the benefits that you found. I agree. Just by being able to explore and just play, not limiting yourself to one type of medium, but just finding, the material you were using was a little limiting with rug hooking. So you went to some embroidery, and embroidery is pretty neat, and I can keep it going. I find a study like that is really rewarding to be able to give yourself a freedom not to have a purpose for all of your work. So, and I think
Yes.
I think you're finding that also. You just did another year
Yep,
project. Brave
I
soul.
did. My husband keeps telling me, "Don't do one this year. Don't do one this year." But no, I was glad to do that. And that one was all stitch,
Yes.
with some painting to
I like
augment it.
how that painting evolved. I mean, you did it initially, but you really were mastering it at the end on space,
Yeah,
shapes.
I was pleased with how some of them came out. There are certain ones I don't know. I mean, it was mostly watercolors because I was just grabbing what I had because that was the rule. It was on the foundation piece was an old linen curtain from IKEA that I found in the thrift store. And then I had the only thing I could buy to play with it was floss, embroidery floss if I needed it. But in general, I'm gifted with this stuff from various places. So I really didn't have to do much that way, purchasing.
I got to see that in August as you traveled
Yes.
with it.
I
Um,
did because I thought while I was on the road I would actually do some. I did none.
you didn't, but somebody got to see it in real life. And it was fun. I agree with you also. The accountability of social media, just being able to post every night, not for bragging purposes, but just pretty much for documentation. And it's
For
kind of,
documentation and to make sure I was kind of concerned with the ribbon rug journal that I might dwindle away. But
right.
no, people were offering me, please, can you do this one tomorrow? Can you do one soon? They were giving me suggestions on what I should do.
Oh, great. Great. And you can always turn that around and say, "Gee, I'd love to see yours."
Exactly.
Uh, well, the only other thing that I wrote down as a note, and in all of these interviews, that conversation that we have after looking at the slides is purposely so that our viewers look back at our interviews and look at your slides and listen a little differently the second and third time. What I caught from that was unusualness in shape. And certainly the piece that is in Stories Are Made Loop by Loop is life-size outline of yourself with holes cut out through it. So when we shared that arriving here from New Mexico a couple days ago, and I posted it up on social media, it was nice that Elizabeth Miller made a comment.
Yeah.
She uses the bravery or the experimental or the unusual shapes and such for many people in her classes that she teaches, just to be able to let people know it doesn't have to be, square cornered edges all the time. It's whatever organic shapes that you want your pieces to be. And I think your pieces really are that. They're rounded corners, they're odd shaped, long runners, and even holes in the middle of them just for fun.
I like the holes.
Yeah. Set a mug inside there instead of on the rug,
Yep.
or whatever. So I really appreciate hearing your story. And I definitely appreciate our decades-long friendship.
Mhm.
Just
Should have brought that first rug in. I
a
still
little,
have it.
yep. I taught a mixed media workshop some time ago, one of my
Oh,
first workshops.
yeah.
Um,
2008,
mm, yeah, not even a teens. It was
2007,
probably.
something like that.
Mhm.
Yeah,
And
I didn't know who anyone was.
uh, nor I in my class, so it was very nice. And then we've been able to meet up and follow, and I really appreciate you and I being core members to the In the Studio online
Mhm.
program, which has been going on. Dear COVID, we learned so many things.
COVID was not so terrible for certain things.
It wasn't.
Certainly from my work, it's not. It
Yeah.
coming together for In the Studio gave me a lot of confidence, and now I get to go teach in other places.
Yes. Yes. Great networking. So thank you very much, Laura. As I said to everyone
Yep.
else, we will share that contact information at the end of this interview. And we appreciate anyone who gets to see the exhibits in person to make comments and to reach out to Laura and say, I saw you. Thanks.